Good evening and namaste. Namaskar. Thank you all so much for this incredibly inspiring evening. I kind of feel like I don't deserve to go after what we just heard, which was such a connection with who we are and what we do. But let me say a few thanks, give you a few words. It's always the most difficult speech to give, the last one. I think it was Winston Churchill who once said, everything that needs to be said has been said, but it hasn't been said by everybody. So I guess that's why I'm here. But I want to thank the incredible vision of this foundation, Balipara. I want to thank as well the incredible work that Ranjit and his team, Radhika, who's part of that team as well, I know, have put into connecting real people doing real work with the most important challenge that we face as human beings. And as said, there are still so many human beings that absolutely are connected with our Earth. But I think in our modern age, so many human beings have become disconnected from that. So may tonight be a building of a bridge back to who we are and where we come from. I want to make a second introduction, if I could ask our Consul General, who works out of Kolkata, Kathy Giles Diaz, who represents not only West Bengal and Bihar and Jharkhand for our US mission here, but all the states of the Northeast, this beautiful part not only of India but of the world. If you could stand up and please be recognized. She is an incredible and exceptional leader who has prioritized environment at the top. And if you have visa issues, talk to her, not me. Just kidding. We are so proud of the work that we are doing all here together. So I'll walk a little bit because I know it's late to keep you just before dinner, to try to send you off with some words of inspiration and of connection. I first saw the Himalayas when I was 14 years old. My mother and my father brought me and my sister, who was 2 years older, to India in 1985. We spent Christmas and New Year's both here and in Nepal. And I remember the feeling of seeing these holy mountains. They were something only God could have created. They were something that every single time since I've ever seen the snow caps on the top, or met with people who live the foothills and everywhere in between, are not just an amazing part of this part of the world. They are, as you have said tonight, indeed the third pole, a place of human existence, just as Your Majesty talked about the cradle of humanity coming from Africa. We know this is one of the cradles of Mother Earth herself, right here in the Himalayas. I came back inspired, and I started my work as an environmentalist in high school, in secondary school. My first internship was with an organization in the city of Los Angeles, where I come from, the place where Hollywood produces movies and stories of humanity. I could have worked for a movie studio or maybe done something in international trade, but instead I started working for a small organization up the hill from my school called Tree People. That was all about connecting human beings with trees. With understanding in Los Angeles, where we live in a semi-arid desert, that a tree captures rainwater and stores it. That in a hot environment like where we live, a tree provides shade for a child to play under, for a senior to wait for a bus so that she can go to a doctor's appointment. We learned how trees interconnect, not just with the city that we lived in, but how trees together in forests become communities. I spent many of those years afterwards in the western United States, where the largest organism in all of planet Earth isn't one tree, it is the collective of all the aspen trees that live in the western part of the United States, their roots growing together until an entire forest becomes a single organism linked from one to the next. Would that human beings would recognize what trees teach us, so that we would know how interconnected our roots must be if we are to survive together. Since then, I worked in forests around the world. I lived next door to here in Myanmar 2 summers, as I saw the impact of war on one of the most beautiful tropical forests we have anywhere in the world, as it was burned and destroyed in communities that depended on it. I lived in Africa, in Eritrea, and in Ethiopia, where we saw the devastation over use and the deforestation of a country that no longer had any trees left and people didn't know how to cook a meal anymore. But I also saw human beings hungering for that connection, to plant trees. This morning, Consul General and I and our team, we woke up in Tripura. And just before leaving here, the airport director asked us if we would plant a tree outside the airport. Besides this gathering, which has inspired me, I can say it was probably the best part of my day. Knowing that we put something down that will long outlive us, knowing that it connects with these trees that have been planted in a garden that is growing there, and knowing the impact they will have on the health and the happiness of everyone who goes by them. We honor tonight Earth heroes, and each one of you is that, a hero. But you know, I'm a huge optimist, one of those people who is an idealist, who's never been able to find a hero. Sometimes we use that word and it's almost unattainable, because a hero almost sounds like somebody who is perfect. And we are just human beings. We do perfect things occasionally, but we're imperfect beings. So a hero maybe isn't something like what we write in mythology. Somebody who, from beginning to end, inspires us every single hour of every single day of every single year of her or his life. A hero is an action, not a being. And I call on us all, through the inspiration that we've heard. We heard somebody who's discovered 100+ species of fish and named them for the first time. We've seen a queen who takes the story of Africa and gives back around the world and crosses over where slaves were traveled to inspire people about the power that they have every single day. We've seen young people who say, we're not trying to bring something back or save something. People always have and are the stewards of land, connected to all living creatures. Tonight, let us see that there are heroes in everything that we do when we act heroically, not when we are heroes. The United States and India have been working together for decades. When I was hearing about Tata Power, it reminded me in 1902 in Mysore, before an independent India, how an American company, General Electric, helped build the Shivansamudra Dam, one of the first hydroelectric dams to give power to people deserving of modernism and electricity. The innovation today that Indians bring to America, where we see breakthroughs and investments in everything from battery power to electrolyzers, who can give us new clean fuels that will not pollute our earth and give us AQI indexes of, like in Delhi last week, 1,369 at the American Embassy. We're literally, we know, as happened in my city in Los Angeles when I was growing up and we had the worst air in America, that pollution steals years of lives from children. It stops the dreams of people who don't make it. And as we were reminded today, it even takes the lives of those that love us most. We know here too in India that the connection to forest has been eternal. And in America too. It was John Muir, the great naturalist, who helped us in America stop cutting down our forests and start preserving them, who said the clearest way into the universe is through a forest wilderness. The clearest way into the universe is through a forest universe. And here in India, the goddess Aranyani, or we heard from our great activists in the Sundarbans, where we were just a couple months ago, Bombibi, the gods and goddesses who come from and are connected to the forest, 2 of the 4 Hindu phases of life that require living in a forest. Forests can be both boundaries of possibility, but they can also be the seeds and sustainers of hope. So what do we do to act heroically today? Tomorrow I will head with my wife, my friends, to Kaziranga. I've been crossing for the last 2 years from the foothills of the Himalayas down to Kanyakumari, from Nagaland all the way to Jaisalmer. I've seen this country's beauty, the history that it inspires, but the present that it is writing as well. And it makes me want to join with you to act heroically, to say, as Ranjit has, how can we take the Great People's Forest, one of the 3 or 4 greatest forests in the world that spans from Nepal through Sikkim to Bhutan to here in India and Myanmar, and what can we do today to make sure that forest not only lives and survives, but it grows and thrives? What can we do today to make sure that there are jobs and livelihood? Naturenomics is all about that connection, that when we act heroically and sustainably, we can also see economic prosperity. When I was mayor of the city of Los Angeles, we led the United States in job growth generation. And I remember a couple mayors saying, why are you outpacing New York and San Francisco and Chicago? And I pointed them to the work that we were doing on water, on power, on waste, on green actions that we took that created livelihoods for people that otherwise would not have jobs. In the poorest neighborhoods of my city, how we could train somebody who had been homeless to install solar power on a low-income home that then gave somebody a place to live and gave that person a way to make a living together. So Naturenomics is on to that we don't just do this for our personal health and our planetary health. This is the only hope we have for our economic health today. Our world is crying for us to be heroes. I was the president of C40 Cities, which is the 100 largest cities in the world, including those here in India. And at the COP conference in Glasgow a couple years ago, I was asked to represent the cities of the world. And instead of just 100, we expanded to 1,000 cities at a time when we had people threatening to withdraw from the Paris Climate Accords and few countries living up to their commitments. I said, what if the cities inspired the nations and the world to do more? And as I stood on that stage, we had 1,000 cities that pledged by the midpoint of this century to be zero carbon cities. We call it the Cities Race to Zero. And the United Nations added up what the actions of communities, local communities, and these cities meant together, and they calculated it was as big as the 5th largest country and economy in the world. It was the equivalent of India making that pledge to go to carbon net zero. So the power you have to be heroic isn't just in listening to others, but thinking in your community, and your business, and your school, and your organization, in your town, in your state, in your nation, what you can do to inspire heroic actions that will save this planet, yes, but that will also become that forest of interconnected roots that can allow in the spring the leaves to come that give us shade, can allow the fruit that comes and sustain, and maybe stop the noise and the conflict that we hear each day. I have to go do a little Hindi, so I have to come back to here. Gas chup hai, kash chup hai, mukshal palak chup hai. Bhavani Prasad Mishra wrote these lines in a poem. The grass is silent, the reeds are silent, the salt tree is silent. When we hear the world around us, when we pause for a moment, even tonight, and we listen to what this earth and to what we, a part of this earth, are saying, all the answers are there for us to truly all take heroic actions and for this planet to sustain the future we dream of seeing. Thank you so much, and Dhanyavad.